MyEasyApp allows you to create online database application easily and use it for free. In this tutorial, I will show you step by step how to build a database application that manages a list of students. With this knowledge, you can build similar applications to manage your books, videos, collections, and more. To start building database application, you first need to log into the site. Once you log into the site, you will see a list of icons representing a list of site functions. In this tutorial, we use the application builder, which is the second icon in the first row, Build Apps. Clicking on the icon launches the application builder. On the application builder's page, you can see several types of applications. Let's pick the database application for this tutorial and click Create. On the Setup Applications page, you will need to provide some basic information such as application ID and name. The default value is pre-populated. You can take the default value, or in our example, let's set the application ID to student and display name to student list. And then click Continue. Step 3 is the most important step in this tutorial. In this step, you define data model for the application. Data model is a term that refers to the structure of information that you want to store in the database. In our example, it means what information you want for each student, such as first name, last name, etc. In MyEasyApp, a data model consists of one or more entities. An entity represents a database table. In our example, student is an entity. The detailed information about the student, such as first name, last name, is called field. Fields are columns of the database table. Every field has a type, such as text or date. Type is very important because the application builder will generate appropriate behavior based on the type. Now let's define the data model for our student list application. To create a student entity, please click the Add Entity button. On the Add Entity page, let's define the name of the entity to be student and the display name to be student as well. Now let's add fields to the student entity. First, let's add first name and mark it as required. Let's add last name as well and mark it as required. Next, let's add field gender. It'd be nice if we can select gender from a drop-down list as opposed to enter as text. So let's create a reference to another entity called genders, which we will create later. Next, let's add the field date of birth and select the type datetime. By default, datetime will include both date information and time information. For date of birth, we only need date, so let's enter date here. We can add more fields such as parents or phone number. Now let's add field email. We have a specific type for email. Let's select it. Let's add another field called address. We have a location type. Let's select it. The last field we'll add is notes field. This is to capture any additional information about a student. Let's select the rich text for it, so it will be displayed in a text editor as opposed to an input box. Let's mark it as extended as well, so it will only show up when you drill down to the student details and won't show up in the summary view. Now we're done with the student entity. Let's click Save. Now we're back at the Define Data Model page. As you can see, the student entity is showing up now. There's a link for you to modify or delete the student entity. If you remember, we still need to create a gender table to show gender information in the drop-down list. So let's click the Add Entity button again. This time, let's set the entity name to genders. And let's select the type setup, which indicates gender is a lookup data, not an actual student information. Let's set the display name to gender and display value to name. This is the name of the field we want to display in the dropdown. If we don't specify this value, the dropdown will show the gender ID such as 0, 1, or 2, which is not very user-friendly. It's better to have gender name displayed. Now let's create the name field. For the gender name, we want to mark it as both required and unique. So the application builder will generate logic to prevent you from creating empty or duplicate gender names. That's all we need to do for the gender entity. Please click Save to go back to the data model page. Now you should be able to see the new genders entity showing up in the entity list. With both student and gender entity, we have defined the data model. Now let's click Generate. It will take a few seconds to generate the application, and then you are going to the completion page. The completion page is informational. There is no additional information you need to provide. Let's go back to the user's home page. As you can see, a new application called Student List is showing up on the desktop. Click on it will launch the application. The main dashboard page of the application contains 4 sections: data entry, setup, browse, and report. Let's click Add Student. As you can see from the Add Student page, the gender entity is empty. We have not set it up yet. Let's set it up. Let's create a value called male and another value called female. Now we can add a student. John, Doe, and gender male. Let's pick a date of birth and parent name, Rich, phone number, any phone number, email, any email, address, any address. And there is no notes. Let's click Create. Now let's browse the student. You can see a new student is created. If you click on gender, you will get a list of male students. If you click email, it will open up your email client. If you click address, a Google map will be displayed. There are also actions for you to modify or delete the student. This is the generated application. You can build similar applications easily with My Easy app. Thanks for your time.